so many years in the peloton, yeah, it's things that you could never get outside of this sport.
We'll speak on behalf of Sean here, and as he keeps up with his Flemish and his French, and can be heard on the phone, keeping in touch with old friends. And it's something as well that I guess you've treasured going into later life, Sean. You still keep up with all of those acquaintances and practice the languages.
Yes, well, I think it's, you know, as Larry said, it's a great opportunity when you're in there at the peloton, and you have, you know, the opportunity to make a name for yourself, first of all, make money if you're very successful, learn languages, and all of those opportunities are there. And the language ones is a great thing to have after your sport if you want to go into the team management or else something great to have.
Welcome back with Remco Evenepoel towards the back of the peloton. White jersey on his back. Best young rider prize his, unless he falls away in the last week. A couple of riders falling away off the start list, I'm afraid, before the day, both with COVID. Chris Harper, the Australian from Jayco Alula, not starting today. That added to the news that Maxim von Gils of Lotto Destiny came out yesterday that he wouldn't be continuing in the Tour. We've seen a few increased measures around buses and stuff. Spanish media were rabbiting away this morning on the social channel saying, oh no, look out in Pogacar's team because Yates and Wellens have turned up in separate cars. There's masks everywhere. It's a bit of a lottery out there at the minute, and part of the Tour is staying healthy as well. Of course, we keep our fingers crossed for everyone.
Yeah, I didn't see that about Chris Harper, but it makes sense because yesterday I went looking for who did the longest rest day ride, because the day before the rest day before, he did like 140K.
He did a heck of a lot, yeah. Let's go to Wout van Aert.
Morning, Wout. You've been very close so far. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into how your condition has built? Do you think you're going better now than you were in the opening week of the Tour?
Yeah, for sure. Feel better. Recovery goes smoother, and yeah, like it was not something crazy, but the performance uphill last Sunday was for sure already way better than like on the Galibier stage. So yeah, I think I'm getting there, but it's always more the feeling than you can see it in the numbers.
And another potential opportunity sprint-wise, but maybe some crosswinds near the end. So you'll be on duty for the win and also for looking after Jonas.
Yeah, like it's a Tour de France, we need to be sharp every day, and I think in this Tour we have already a few times when we thought the wind would play a role, and never was really good enough. So also today we need to be sharp, but yeah, it's also an opportunity to try and win a stage, and it's, for me personally, one of the last opportunities.
It should be the final opportunity for any of the sprinters today. There's a lot of climbing in the other stages that we're unsure of how they're going to finish in. We're just seeing a little bit more activity at the front of the peloton now. Andermatt through the centre. Of course, they have been in Girmay in the green jersey. On the left, as we look at it, Jasper Philipsen has joined the line of riders that included Sylvain Dillier, Axel Laurence and the world champion. And this is why the graphic comes up at just the right time. It's like they're listening to us. We're off to Les Matelettes in 5 kilometres. That means that we're going to have an intermediate sprint. 20 points are up for grabs. And these are going to be an important 20 points, Sean Kelly, because they're going to sort of set the tone, maybe, to what might come later. As long as Biniam Girmay doesn't have a big difference here negatively with Jasper Philipsen, then he'll feel a lot better going into the finish today.
Yes, well, here is going to be an important one, that there is not that big difference between Girmay and Philipsen, and also in the finish, of course, today. And we touched on that in the earlier part, you know, those days, and today especially, with big points going at the finish today, not to lose out for Bini Girmay, and then he's really on the road to Nice here to win the green jersey. But there are other days as well where they're intermediate sprints in the earlier part of the mountain stages. But yeah, today's results at the end will be an important one, and it'll be interesting to see who else will get in the fight here for the points available in the intermediate sprint points, because the others, like, they are a half day down in the green jersey classification. They are way down. Kokar is at over 200 points down, so you know there's there's no way that he's ever going to get near taking the green jersey. But again, Kokar, he's going to keep up there because, as we heard from Philipson, in case something happened to the man ahead in that classification, so I think we will see those three at least having a go here. But I don't think it'll be one of the most contested sprints for the green jersey classification this time.
We've got all the flags going on there. From all over the world, they've come to watch the Tour de France. On the way up the hill, Tour de France approaching, what is it, 4.5 kilometres to the intermediate sprint at Les Matelettes. 5% climb here. We've got one classified climb today. That comes a little further on, around 20 kilometres down the road from where we are now. And it's just at the top of this rise that we go ever so slightly downhill and then in towards that intermediate sprint. Sean was talking about who he thinks might go for it. There are 70 points maximum available today in the sprint, and there's an 86-point difference between first and second. Of course, 50 for the stage, 20 for the first to the intermediate sprint. You've got GC teams still up here because there's that just-in-case feeling as well, given changes of direction and the wind. And supporters starting their holidays on a nice hot day. Memories of a lifetime for many, these. Hope we can get connected up with Adam again soon, because Mr. Fondo Paul's in the fully white outfit today, something that Adam will be raving about, I'm sure. It often means business, and that's the case. Today it should all be, however, for Jasper Philipsen. At the front.
Calm.
Pogacar sitting so close to the front. He's not moved all day really, apart from a couple of stops he's had. Movistar there with Gaviria. Still been a long time since they won a Tour stage. And here we go. Over the top, we're going to see the first accelerations. And Intermarché with Binyam Girmay moving up. And they started the party here, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, well, here we are. Just keep off as long as possible. Keep your men in the position, and then, you know, hit it hard and really give a good lead out. And that's what they do. And yeah, we can see here Intermarché are the ones in control at the moment.
3 Ks to go to the intermediate sprint. On the right, you can see Israel Premier Tech move up. For Intermarché, it's down to, what is it now, 7 riders, with Thijssen going home outside the time limit the other day. Turnison is the man sitting at the moment alongside Binyam Girmay.
The other thing I would say we should watch out for after this intermediate sprint is these are always the moments where on an easy day like this you could see an attempt for the breakaway. So someone who maybe wanted to go earlier this morning and didn't go, they kind of sat back, held it off, and they said, okay, if there's no breakaway, I'll go right after the intermediate sprint. So you might see someone just follow the Intermarché train and try to start a breakaway, because they'll have a lot better chance starting at 95k to go than 170.
Think back to the recent Giro. Happened very early on in the race, didn't it? Benjamin Thomas ended up winning from a breakaway after they'd gone. I think it was either an intermediate sprint or one of those new Inter-Giro classifications. And it's with that sprint coming up that I'm going to hand over to Colton Kirby for the next little while, because things are getting very quick.
Thank you, Rob. Extraordinarily quick. Well, if you thought for a moment that the green jersey on the back of Binyam Girmay was simply going to follow Jasper Philipsen in a moment such as this, then think again. It's a big statement coming up right now. See Ennis Grenadiers also moving up, accenting what Larry was saying about the possibility of a breakaway, speeding on, pacing on afterwards. Don't be surprised if Kwiatkowski suddenly indeed goes a little bit further on. Good to hear from Larry Warbass. You'll be hearing more from him tomorrow. We welcome back Robin McEwen into the commentary position. Bauhaus, De Lee, Jesper Philipsen and William Gamay being picked out for you. And no surprise either to see Michael Matthews also just drifting off and up towards the fore. Matthews just riding the centre line at the moment. He's been extraordinarily active throughout the entire day. You never know, might well be him. Also starting to buzz here, it's the world champion, Mathieu van der Poel. He's on lead-out duty, of course, for Jesper Philipsen. And so if you thought this was going to be a benign moment for them, think again. In fact, they're lined out side by side here. It's Intermarché Wanty on the edge of the road. And a little bit of Elbridge, or is it just leaning into the gap? Nervous times. Brian Coquard has managed to encamp himself up towards the front. There's Ackermann just a little bit out of position for the time being. William Gamay looks like he's locked in at the wrong side just for now. More freedom on offer, it seems, for Philipsen. Let's have a look. A little bit of blocking, a little bit of barging. None of that, thankfully, not too bad anyway. All fair in love, war and sprinting. And up through the centre. Is it Gaviria who's coming to join the fun here? And finally we get our release. Coquard on the barriers here. And Binny is on following mode. Centre of the road opens up for him. Brian Coquard makes a statement. And in fact, some places there between Jesper Philipsen and indeed William Gamay. I think Philipsen was runner-up on that one. But Gamay possibly in 5th place or possibly 6th. So a little eating into the gap then. But Sean, that was busy.
Yes, it was very busy. We could see there that Albertson was very much involved. We could see Van der Poel there with the lead out from the team of Albertson de Koning. It looked like Axel Laurence was up there, and yeah, not getting the places maybe they would have liked here, but again, it was a really contested one. I was not expecting to be as many teammates involved in the mix there trying to lead out their sprinters.
A lot at stake, Robbie, and clearly points were being hunted here by Jesper Philipsen. William Gamay kind of on moderating duties, I think it's fair to say. Talk us through this, Robbie.
Well, Gamay, of course, tracking Jesper Philipsen, but he got disconnected from his lead out. And then I started to look at the riders in between. Anthony Turgis come into the day 5th in the points classification, but trying to get them. Brian Coquard 3rd coming into the point standings. So they're all trying to just shore up their positions within this competition. Arnaud De Lee, the one pushed down to 5th there. Gamay coming back almost to the wheel of Jesper Philipsen, but it's riders sort of trying to shore up their positions, and it's actually very, very close between Coquard, who got the best of that one. He was 5 points clear of De Lee going into today, another point clear of Turgis. So very, very close between 3rd and 5th, and that's why we saw just such a number of riders up there trying to get themselves points. And then at the same time, the very next shot we saw after the intermediate sprint was a picture of Mark Cavendish hovering about 50 metres off the back of the peloton, getting a fresh bidon from the team car. Zero interest in the intermediate sprint, and saving himself for what's going to be an absolutely hectic and chaotic run into the finish. If that's how hard fought the intermediate sprint was, I'll wait for the finish.
Yeah, fireworks most certainly, I assume. I think William Gamay actually was 3rd across the line there. Late throw, the road opened up for him dead centre, and he managed to just limit the damage, I think, and the space between himself and Jesper Philipsen. A couple from Total Energies deciding that this is worth the candle. Gachinard is going up. They were one of the duo very early on, with Sandy Dujardin was up there with Kung, but that came to naught. But Gachinard's taken it on. Thought there was another bridging over, one of his teammates, but I think it was just a reverse shot of this man alone for the time being. It's a long way to go on your own there, Robbie.
Oh, well, absolutely a long way to go. Might have been hoping for a few other brave souls to come out and join him and make something of this. But nonetheless, a young Frenchman, he'll say, I'm off the front in the Tour de France, trying, can't win the sprint, might as well have a go at this.
Sean, they were generating their own wind as we come past Vieux-le-Fort. Not the gale or the hoolie we were hoping for just yet, but on some of the peaklets, and we've got a few coming up. There's an intermediate KOM, the only climb of the day that's actually indeed quantified with points on offer, is at Fambotou. But when we got to the last peak, just as that downhill run into the sprint around Port-Chabon, it was really blowing up top, so there is wind out there.
There is, and we're in a section again where it's pretty well covered here, as you can see, and you know, it's still nervous there, and you can see the riders that were on the front of the bunch leading up to that intermediate sprint point. A lot of the GC men were up there, and we heard from Larry Warbass there as well. After the intermediate sprint, there's always a concern that a team might try something, so you have to be in position to be ready for that. But now they've backed off again. We can see where we're going along here, really well covered for the moment, but if we can take anything from what Adams is telling us all morning and right through the day, it can get open, and it is open. Like with 50 k's to go with some years, that's where it does get quite a lot open, and if the wind is blowing, well then, you know, it could be a problem. Depend on what rate it is blowing at, it could split the peloton, and we will see again, you know, the team will get orders and the riders will be well informed of what's coming up. But yeah, it's all depend now how strong the wind is going to be for this final run of 2 and a bit hours to the finish.
Shutter to come boost looks absolutely spectacular. We'll be hearing more, presumably, deeper into the race from John Harris-Bass, who's just taken himself off for a comfort break. Good for him. Sean's also going to duck out for a wee while, leaving me and Robbie for a short while anyway, before Danny rejoins us. Some spectacular sights around here, Robbie. Was it ever somewhere you ever thought maybe you could indeed hang your bones out for a while?
I would absolutely hang my bones out in this particular area. I always used to really enjoy when you had a rest day down in this particular region. It was really nice just to go for an easy pedal around. For me, on a rest day, that entailed about a pedal of an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I was feeling particularly good. But it was always a huge bonus if you got, accommodation-wise, anything that was even in the vicinity of a chateau. There's some really beautiful places down around here, and we have had a number of good ones. I've also had some shockers.
Do you remember accommodation doping when they used to? There was complaints that Richie Porte was actually he had himself a permanent bedroom in the back of the bus, and so he didn't have to worry about who his bedmate was going to be. It was all there laid out for him. Didn't quite garner the success he'd hoped, and then all of a sudden there was a clampdown that the riders had to have the hotels that were given to them, almost drawn lots for them, weren't there, by the authorities of each of the different races. I remember Andre Greipel himself really bitterly complaining after 3 nights of being bitten by mozzies, saying that the quality of his hotels were absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, and he thought it was deliberate. I think that was on the Giro.
Well, during the Tour de France, what has always been the aim of the organisation is, number one, don't spend too much money on the accommodation for the teams. That was above all. But what they tried to do was balance out the number of stars that each team had hotel-wise across the entire tour. That generally meant a combination of 2 and 3 star accommodations. You see the repeat of this sprint, Mathieu van der Poel leaving the door open there for Brian Coquard to come through. Turgis in his wheel, so looking to defend his spot. Biniam Girmay with a good acceleration right at the end. Don't think he quite got Turgis, but in a moment we'll see confirmation of the placings from the intermediate sprint. But again, I just noticed that Jasper Philipsen really got himself boxed in and trying to find the exit to the left, and they just kept coming past, and Brian Coquard wound it up and was gone. And Turgis might have been better just to keep himself in the wheel of Brian Coquard rather than swinging out. There, it was a close one between him and Girmay. Philipsen was second and Delay was fifth. But to Biniam Girmay, it doesn't matter too much, and 80-odd point lead in that competition.
Phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, as long as he stays upright and gets to Nice, that green jersey is his. But Brian Coquard, he'll take a fair bit of confidence out of that sprint.
I think so. It's a question of timing later on. The last roundabout today, by the way, is only with, 350 metres to go. We're playing with the ring road, Robbie, and therein lies its own problems.
Well, the thing with that finish, there's 10 roundabouts in the final 10 kilometres. There's 4 in the final 2.5. The 3-kilometre banner is just before a 90-degree left-hand turn, so a quarter of a roundabout. That could bring the problems in itself. Had they put the safe zone back to 4 kilometres to go, it gives the GC riders and their teammates keeping them up the front, gives them time to get out of the area, vacate the space needed by the sprinters and their teammates. Now it's at 3. They'll go through the 3K banner for safety, but almost immediately turn left through that roundabout. Then it's a very quick succession of roundabouts after that. It's going to be more complicated for them to sort of not to be in the way and actually in harm's way as the sprint teams try to do their thing. But in particular, that last roundabout, 380 metres to go, it's passage only on one side of it. It's 2 lanes, it's quite wide, but it's the way it's set up and you swing into it, it's going to be a really fast entrance, but you go a little further around it to take the exit, taking you straight ahead, so that the angle of the exit is greater than the angle of the entrance. So I think we'll see a lot of carrying really high speed into it and possibly misjudging the exit. And whoever gets that right will put themselves in prime position. I just have the feeling that there's going to be those who maybe misjudge it, get themselves a little bit too hot in the exit of the roundabout and have to then dab the brakes, freewheel, adjust their line and could get overtaken, swamped and ruin their own sprint so close to the line.
With so many twisted turns, I think we're probably able to call it a technical finish, despite the fact that it's essentially a straight road interrupted by roundabouts. And who's going to navigate them as well as you possibly can? We're going to be hearing from Alexander Christopher in a few moments' time. He's not bad when it comes to a bruising finale, and he's actually still got his entire team intact. So Soren Varenshold should be working on behalf of Alexander Christopher a little bit later on. He was haranguing his own team for losing them, getting disengaged from his own lead out, which he deemed to be not his fault. So, you know, the old Viking can get a bit tetchy on occasion. Maybe today he'll be smiles. Let's find out.
You're going to Nîmes today, where you won a stage 10 years ago. How is it to go back to where you won?
It's a decade ago, so it's a long time, but yeah, it's good memory still. Maybe it can happen again, we will see.
How are you feeling? How are you dealing with the fatigue here while you're approaching the 3rd week?
I was just laying in my room all day yesterday and not doing anything, so I hope it has recovered the legs a bit. I was really fatigued last day in the Pyrenees, but right now I feel okay. So watching my roommate getting his blue, what you call moustache, and was an easy day, so yeah, we'll see today. It's a bit windy, but I think actually the wind will pay less and less, because it will go down, so it will not be a big effect, I think, for the race, but you never know.
Believing the wind will ebb, let's wait and see. There's our man up the road at the moment, Thomas Gachina, 1.5 minutes he has on the peloton as it stands. Robbie, I was just looking through those who would have been part of a lead out that are now missing. Significantly, of course, Gerben Thijssen for Biniam Girmay. He was never really supposed to be part of Biniam's lead out. He was supposed to be the man who was led out. Yeah, exactly. And then Binny goes and does it solo on stage 3, and all of a sudden everyone's believing in Binny. Then, of course, he doubles up on stage 8, and everyone's saying, my goodness, he's on stellar form, and he did that with a lead out with Gerben Thijssen because it was a lumpy day, and then the entire team fell behind Biniam Girmay. Naturally enough, he gets himself a 3rd stage win on stage 12, which was as close to a full-on bunch sprint as you're likely to get. And then Gerben Thijssen abandons. Had enough, he's gone home. I don't think there was anything untoward about it, but it must have been heartbreaking for Gerben Thijssen to be the supported man with Biniam supposedly having a free hand, and the greatness has just poured down on Biniam Girmay. I mean, inter-team rivalry does happen, Robbie, you know this.
It does, and sometimes someone has to play second fiddle, and unfortunately for Gerben Thijssen, Biniam Girmay ended up getting himself in a position to contend for the green jersey, which looks like now he will win it, so the decision has been the right one by the team. But when someone gets themselves in that position to dominate one of the competitions, in particular for the sprinters, the green, then you have to say to the other guy who was picked in the team to come and do the flat bunch sprints, very sorry, Gerben, but we're going to have to put all our resources into Binny, and we'd rather you are not up there challenging him, but rather trying to help, which to his credit he did do on that 2nd stage win of Biniam Girmay's, that little uphill kicker Gerda Batassen did his job in the final few kilometres for the team and contributed to that win. So I think it's a really close-knit team, and nonetheless I think it's really understandable that Gerda Batassen will be somewhat disappointed with the lack of opportunity that he's had throughout this race. But he's young. Hopefully he'll get another go at it. It just depends now how the team go forward in selecting their tour team. And if they say, well, you know what, we're just going pure lead-out man team for Binny and not even taking another sprinter.
Confirmation of how the sprint indeed finished. Biniam Girmay was indeed in 4th place with Jesper Philipsen in 2nd. So there's 4 points have been trimmed off the gap between the pair of them. It's still substantial. So 17 points went to Jesper Philipsen, 13 went to Biniam Girmay, but still a very handsome lead overall. The points tally for Biniam Girmay is 376. At the end of today, he could bust 400. Jesper Philipsen on 294. So sterling effort by Jesper Philipsen. He could be getting his 3rd stage win. But Biniam Girmay has been a constant feature of the sprints. And as Robbie was saying, when it comes uphill, he has very few problems when it's a lumpy sprint approach. And indeed now it seems in a bunch sprint scenario as well. And that relaxed nature, Robbie, can add more power to your elbow, or indeed to the drive that you have. That intermediate sprint, Biniam Girmay just stayed really cool. And when the doors opened, he just turned on the juice and went through the gap. It was fabulous.
Yeah, much like Philipsen, or even worse so, Biniam Girmay got himself really boxed in and sort of looked like really missing the opportunity, but he's got great patience. He's very cool and just doesn't panic. And when it did open up, he's obviously still got the legs to make a short acceleration and make up a number of positions. And that's been on show all throughout this tour when it's come to the bunch sprints. That very first one he won in Turin, gap opened up, he slotted into it, and it was a late rush. But he's got great acceleration, and again the uphill, the 3rd stage he won as well. He's got just an incredible turn of speed for a guy who you would look at him, and sprinter isn't the first sort of specialty that would spring to mind when you look at Biniam Girmay. He's not that big muscular type. When we talk about the likes of Andre Greipels, Marcel Kittels, even a figure like Mark Cavendish, that short but stocky, muscular. Biniam Girmay is much more slightly built, but he obviously has those fast twitch muscle fibres which he uses to great effect.
Just looking at the opposite end of the age spectrum today, and Fabio Jacobs has gone. Van Welten's gone, as we know, he was out of time, sadly for him, over the Pyrenees. So John Degenkolb, I think he might get himself a top 5 today. The alternative is Niels Eekhoff, but I think it'll be for John Degenkolb, especially with the brutality of the roundabouts as they come thick and fast. He's an old dog that still learns new tricks, isn't he?
Well, he still knows how to do it. It's something you don't forget how to do it. It's just if your legs will cooperate, and if you get yourself in the right frame of mind to go into battle for position in the final few kilometres. But he has been doing it since the demise in this race of Fabio Jacobs. And in fact, while he was still in the race, we saw Degenkolb up there in the sprints and get himself, what was it, top 6, top 7?
He's been fabulous.
Yeah, and it's a possibility for him. I think probably a slightly tougher run-in. You know, few hills, few dips, little bit grippier finish would suit Degenkolb even better.
7th he was into Saint-Amand. Yeah, so yeah, he's been there or thereabouts. I've noticed him really chomping at the bit, which he was given to doing throughout his entire career. And also used to love a really tight situation, and sometimes he'd take on some fantastic ramps as well. So I saw the flat stage today and I thought, no, definitely not. And then when I saw who else was missing, and I'm just thinking as well, after the Pyrenees, he will have survived that a lot better than some of the other hard men out there. Tell you who else has been very bright today for you, Robbie, is Michael Matthews.
Yeah, he's looking up and about, and he's desperate for a result, and if it's not today, he can get himself involved, but I don't think he has the pure speed to sort of threaten the top 5.
Next couple of days, though, any news on his wisdom tooth?
No, I'm none the wiser.
I don't think he was either. He was wondering whether it was that or and then we were worried it might be COVID because Chris Harper, I think, went down with COVID. So, yeah, you just don't know. Dylan Groenewegen is terrible at positioning, and I think he was one of the ones that really suffered in the Pyrenees as well. I'm not really certain it'll be Groenewegen today, but then again, I'll say that he'll go and nick it.
Well, it'll be him for the team, I mean.
Oh, yes, I understand.
Matthews doesn't have the speed to compete that I was going to get to as we go through the rest of the team. Dylan Groenewegen is absolutely the man for that. He's got the
I just don't think he's going to win. That's what I meant. But
well,
yeah, let's see. Who's your pick today?
I won't say he can't. I've in our predictor challenge on the breakaway, I was first pick, so I went for the favourite and went for Philipsen.
Danny Rosery joined us. Hello, Danny. It's kind of one of those days we just don't know whether we're stop-start emotionally about it, but the big hoolie hasn't blown up just yet. It's suggested itself on occasion, but it looks like we're waiting for a sprint party, doesn't it?
I think so, and I think even if there is a little bit of wind towards the final in that last 25 kilometres to go, it will still be a big bunch sprint final. It is that last opportunity, isn't it? So it's kind of that calm before the storm, as they say. But yeah, the last big quest for a stage win by the sprinters teams. 12 teams now without a stage win in this Tour de France, so some will be getting desperate.
Well, just one solitary King of the Mountains point up for grabs, and Thomas Gachinard is going to grab that. Category 4 test, sails over the line. There'll be a modicum of prize money as well for him, and it's nice that he's just animated. He's got 2 minutes and 11 for the time being. A thankless task being in the break today, Danny. We saw they almost fell into the breakaway, didn't they, this morning? And the breakaway ended when they both took a comfort break.
Yeah, exactly, Carlton. And I think, it's because of that last opportunity for the sprinters that other teams are just saying, well, we're not going to waste our energy, especially before a day like tomorrow where on paper, and I know we keep saying this, and we've only had, 2 stages where it's ended up being advantageous and a rider winning from the break, but tomorrow does look perfect for a breakaway, so I think we will see a huge fight tomorrow and then again on stage 18 for the break. But yeah, like you say, today just down to those nature breaks and building up for what I'd put my money on as being a big sprint final.
Vauquelin was that one from a break into Bologna, and Anthony Turgis into Troyes on the gravel stage. That was a brave move as well. I don't know whether it be bravery or madness today, Robbie, to go into a breakaway, but poor old Thomas Gachinard has decided it's worth the candle. Off he goes.
Well, he's a man that, even if he won't stay away, and I don't believe he will, he's a man who's renowned as finishing what he starts. He's ridden 19 stage races so far in his young career, and he's finished every single one of them. Just gone through the last couple of seasons. Over the last, just over a year and a half of racing, he's only had 3 DNFs of all the races he's ridden. This year, just 1, and that was in the Grand Prix Quillion, where the weather was absolutely filthy, and there were a number of crashes. 1 DNF all season.
That's really impressive. And we were talking, myself and Robbie, before the breakaway this morning, and I asked the question, will any of the sprinters climb off after today's stage? Why would you put yourself in a hole when there aren't any more opportunities on the road? And of course not finishing Paris on the Champs-Élysées this year, but with that time trial in Nice. And I think the overrising kind of consensus was that there is so much respect in finishing a Tour de France that they will absolutely carry on.
Yeah, it's a kind of a peer pressure and a badge of honour that you can finish the Tour, even if there isn't that final carrot dangling in Paris for the sprinters. Will try and push on and just get themselves through it. You don't want to be the one that people look at and go, couldn't finish it, could you? Too hard, was it?
We were talking earlier, Danny, about the psychology of reaching the end of the race, or at least the end within sight, and whether that helps you over those last couple of mountains. Surely it will, but surely as well, as we've seen in the past, there'll be a few riders who just miss the time gap on the penultimate day or something of such nature, and it's doubly heartbreaking, isn't it, to get so close?
It is doubly heartbreaking. I mean, it won't be down of a lack of trying physically, but or mentally, you would say. All of these bike riders are so tough. They ride in and work with psychologists, and I found it really interesting listening to Mark Cavendish on the Gruppetto with Rob Hatch, who said he can deal with the pressure because he puts things into perspective, and he can kind of compare, you know, bike riding to the armed forces who have got real pressure on their shoulders. And it was something that we were told, all you're doing is riding round on a wooden bowl, and that helped us with that psychological aspect of bike riding and racing.
So I am just behind the peloton. We've been over the top of the climb, and just in front of me, about 4 cars in front, is Mathieu van der Poel. Now, first of all, he is wearing all white. This is the second time in this year's Tour de France he's worn all white. He looks like a damn unicorn. The man looks amazing. But the last time he was in white, he led Jasper Philipsen out to victory. And just in front of him is Arnaud Delis. Now, Delis, he went past Van der Poel on the climb and was putting in a big effort. I don't know if that was to open the legs up a little bit, because when you ride easy, sometimes you get that feeling in the legs, but right behind the peloton, chasing hard on the climb and on his own as well. No teammates around him to protect him. We're on the downhill now, and we're approaching the turn where the wind may change, and I'm going to sit back and appreciate some cool breeze, because it is still 37 degrees out here. It is hot. Back to you, commentators.
Thank you, Adam. What's really weird when the weather is this warm is that sometimes a breeze can burn. I know it sounds really weird, but if you were to, I don't know, blow onto your arm, I asked the doctor about this. What's happening if you blow onto an arm that's sweated up, and it suddenly feels like that your very breath is burning? Apparently, it's a vectoring effect, so it actually just pulls in the hot air and kind of scorches you.
Maybe an easy one to understand, yeah. Carlton, because this is what I always likened it to. It's like stepping into a fan-forced oven.
Yeah.
Or just even when you open the oven door and it just bursts out of you, that is what it's like when the heat gets up in that high 30s and up to 40 degrees. It feels like just riding into like a furnace, or someone's opened the oven door in front of you, and it's a constant.
And that's precisely what I'm going to describe it as next time. Oh dear, you're using it a lot more succinctly than me. But anyway, yes, it's just like riding in a fan oven. We'll edit the last bit out. 55 kilometers per hour. Danny, we're heading downhill, so it feels like a sequence of roller coaster ramps at the moment, and it's going to be downhill for about the next 15 or 18 kilometers.
Yeah, it is, until around 50 kilometers to go, slowly riding downhill. The descent here finishes with just a couple of kilometers to go, and then it's kind of a little bit undulating before a real flat run into the finish. No climbs whatsoever in the last 30 kilometers, and I mentioned it before, they take a left-hand turn with around 25 kilometers to go, where there's a few exposed sections, and then that quite technical, roundabout heavy run into the line, shall we say. But obviously Alpecin looking to control this one with favourite Jasper Philipsen for today's stage.
What are they up to, Robbie? They appear to be burning their resources at the moment. I don't know whether this is just to neutralise any breakaway, but they can't be putting pressure on Biniam Girmay because he likes lumpy roads, and that's what we've got at the moment.
No, this is just Sylvain Dillier, as we've seen so often in this tour, just in controlling mode on the front. So a lot of the team are up there towards the front, but they're not using all those resources, just using the one man who quite often rides as if he was two men. Sylvain Dillier just kilometre after kilometre on the front of the Tour de France, neutralising breakaways, and that's what he was brought here exactly to do.
Dillier and Pollitt, they've been phenomenal, haven't they?
Yeah, they just pump out the rhythm all day long.
Absolutely amazing. Just goes to prove you how many different elements there are to a winning team, Danny. You know, you've got to have so many boxes ticked, haven't you? And you've got to have the ability as well to fill in around those who will leave you.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, if you look at Visma Lease bikes that run in, and they lost two men very, very close to this Tour de France, and you have to have those, you know, teammates to be able to fill those gaps as well. Like you said, Carlton, it will be meticulously planned, not just for a tour or a grand tour, but for the makeup of any team in the off-season, signing riders. You need to be able to, you know, fill the whole quota with riders that are more suited to different terrains, whether your goal being the classic season or a Grand Tour. You need to be able to complement your leader and, you know, use that as your best opportunity to win these bike races, and that's what the teams will do, of course.
Well, we're still waiting for the wind, Robbie. The chance of it, I understand, was to ebb during the afternoon, and it looks like the wafting of that, is it a bit of a parachute? It's not the wind that's doing that.
No, it takes a bit of people power to waft the parachute.
John, we better come to you for an homage here. It looks like Superman.
It does look like Superman, and you see, I like that one. That was fantastic, lacking a little bit of blue, and he didn't have any underwear on outside of his blue trousers. But other than that, that was superb. That was imaginative. They thought outside of the box, and yeah, I'm going to give that a 10.
Finally,
Good
John.
Lord.
Well,
Yeah.
10 for the wafting of the cape.
For the wafting, it was also the description of the wafting, I have to say, Robbie, that really sold it to me.
Gosh, John's feeling generous. I think Danny was going to give it a 9.
Maybe, yeah, but I have been a little bit worried about these scores that Jono's been given throughout this Tour de France. Very harsh, high standards.
I think there's a few people sharing the same mood. Oh, there goes there goes our helicopters. They finished their work time directive. They are now heading up. We have security helicopters. We have flying ambulances as well. It's and of course the television. VIPs and the television as well.
Sipping champagne, eating cheese in a field somewhere halfway along the race route. Whisked through to the finish, straight to the next ravitaillement of champagne.
Do you know, a few years ago, there used to be VIP rides within the peloton, and it got so popular and so numerous, it was starting to affect some of the races. It wasn't on the Tour de France, I'll tell you that, but I don't really want to besmirch either of the other Grand Tours, but they were becoming a nuisance, because basically you'd have some rather large people, which I count myself as one, just basically not knowing how to behave when they were within the peloton. You'd pay a certain amount of money. It was a way of generating funds, and yeah, the Tour de France never had to do it, because quite frankly this is a grand projet as a race. It is co-sponsored or partially sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism. Security, as I understand it, is subsidized by the French government as well. So this is a way of showing France at its absolute best, and I know that John Harris-Bass loves this part of the world, and quite frankly, we, of course, have fallen in love with it over many years. It's a gift, isn't it, John?
It is. I love the majority of France. I love the Mediterranean and huge swathes of Italy, Spain. Great places to come and visit. Love the pace of life. Driving through vines or biking through vines as you are here. I mean, there's not a lot to dislike. Great local food. Yeah, you can while away many days wistfully. It's the sort of place I can imagine retiring to and writing a book.
And will you be taking the De Cheveux with you?
Oh yeah, I still have
on the
it.
road?
Oh, it's not on the road, it's in a garage, but yeah, no, it might make a reappearance.
Well, while some of you have been away, John's been waxing lyrical about his very own tricolor, which is a 2CV called
Shirley.
There we are. Shirley's a bit sick at the moment. Yes, in the garage basically. Yes, you will hear Shirley fuddling around this terrain in later life, according to John. He's very fond of it. I'm not quite sure what this peak is, but we've been seeing it time and time again, John. What is it?
I think, and this is why because it's overseeing the Pic Saint-Loup vineyards, I think it is the original Pic Saint-Loup. And there is a very good wine, Pic Saint-Loup, quite strong nowadays, up to around 15-16%, which is, I think, a little too. It's now going to come up with the name of this. With this I counted. This is the remains of the Chateau de Vivourez. No, it's the Chateau de Montferrand. That was great, wasn't it? That looks exactly like. Yeah. Okay. This is Montferrand. This is the Château de Montferrand, as I've been helpfully assisted by the tour subtitles. This
Looks
started
like
out.
Peveril Castle to me, mate. But anyway, carry on.
It started out as a Roman stronghold, this one, and has been used over the years to basically prove as a guard point. And there was a fortress there, as you can see, that has been allowed to very slowly but surely rot away and not have anything done to it. So I think it's dismantled. 1709 was the last time that people used to live in it, and so since 2017 the Grand Pic Saint-Loup community have announced that they're going to try and save the site from ruin, but as we can see in the last 7 years, very little appears to have been achieved.
And by that, it means they're going to stop people nicking the stone. Yeah. There we are. We were talking about that historically earlier on today. We're going to speak to Pascal Ackermann. Now, I love when we hear from Pascal Ackermann because he is always jolly. Here he is.
Pascal Ackermann, today possibly the last bunch sprint in this Tour de France. You've been up there so close so many times. Tell us what motivation, what mindset are you going into the possible final bunch sprint today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to win a stage, and today is the last real chance to win a stage. So the pressure is high for today. I think we're all motivated, and yeah, we have to grab every chance. So I think all the sprinter teams want to have a sprint today. So I also think the wind has not a big influence today because all the GC teams are still here trying to stay together for the final week. And yeah, I just think it will be a really chaotic sprint in the end.
We've been seeing you climbing really well in the tour so far. The fatigue is arriving in the peloton. Do you think that's an advantage for you? We are in the third week. Fatigue is hitting your rivals.
No, I think especially in the third week, the legs are all important, and I think feel quite fresh. I was good in the mountains, and yeah, I hope I could save some more power in the last days and be fresh for today's sprint.
Always upbeat, Robbie.
He didn't let you down, did he?
He didn't.
Ever smiling.
Oh, I love him.
I was watching your face as he was about to come on. I started looking at you just for the reaction for when he started his answer with a grin.
Oh, bless him.
You know, see how chuffed you were.
Yeah, when it goes well, when it goes badly, Pascal Ackermann still manages to find some gold, and you know, bless him. That's the kind of attitude that really makes a. I don't know, it really helps a team, I think, but they'd like him to win something, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see him win one, you know. I mean, he's a guy, I think, quite often underestimated, underrated. He's won stages in the Giro d'Italia, he's won in the Vuelta a España, so he's one of the very few riders who could complete the trilogy of Grand Tour stage wins here at the Tour de France.
And notably, of course, he was the man that saw off Sam Bennett within his own team. Sam's found a new home. Hasn't learned French yet, but he knows how to order coffee and a croissant. Will that be... Sean's just lost it.
Was he asking, but what's French for croissant?
Anyway, you never know. Sam might well deliver today. I'd love to see it. He's had a few sniffs. How's he going to get on today, Robbie?
Well, I think he's survived the mountains, and a sprinter being a sprinter, if he gets a sniff, he can certainly be in it to win it. He's done it before in the Tour de France. He was in very good form in May coming in at the 4 days of Dunkirk, the good old 6-day race, 4 days of Dunkirk.
Yeah, it was 6 days this year. It's been as much as 8, actually.
I think he won 4 of the stages out of the 6.
He was on stellar form. I had
he
high
only
hopes
rode
for
4
him.
days.
Yes. I mean, who would be your secondary pick today, Danny? Let's say for a top 5 that we haven't really dwelt on.
I mean, just going back to Ackermann, he's had 3 third places. They'll have 2 objectives, of course, coming in to protect Derek G and his place on GC, but he's a good shout. If we're looking aside from Ackermann, DeLee is another rider that I've highlighted as a potential rider. Again, without a stage win, who is obviously very, very keen, but maybe said he lacks experience in the Tour. Demar, although yesterday, on the day before the rest day, he made the time cut by 30 seconds. He was the last rider on the road. So with Demar, I do worry that he'll be holding more fatigue, and I think that's what it's all about today. It will be a very tired sprint. Who's got that fatigue resistance coming into the final opportunity to put themselves in a good spot?
Demar is a bit of a smash and grab artist as well. When he won Milano San Remo, I don't think he'd possibly mind too much about me saying it that way. There was a big crash around him, but he holds his own on occasion. And when he came up the barriers the other day, I was a bit disappointed he got relegated, Robbie.
I was a bit disappointed. I thought it was debatable, the relegation there. The movement was absolutely minimal, and you can't expect to take your metre-long ruler and draw a line with it that's 200 metres long and say, from that line, ye shall not deviate. And he did go across it a little bit, but I find you should be able to protect your position and professionally close the door without putting somebody into the barriers. And at one point where Wout van Aert got closest to the barriers, actually the barriers that came out to him, there was quite a kink in them, which I find that there needs to be more done at finishes by the organisation to have someone, a safety officer with experience in what we're talking about, so someone who's ridden Tour sprints with a fine eye for detail to recheck everything in the minutes before the peloton approaches the finish line. It gives them time to rectify things like barriers that have been kicked out a bit due to crowds pushing on them, because that happens so very often. And the other thing that irritates me about Tour de France finishes, the biggest, most important race in the world, the fact that the crowd are able to lean over the barrier, and if they're leaning out, they're holding any piece of paraphernalia, whatever, they can come into contact with the riders. It's incredibly dangerous, and it's a very simple fix to keep them further back with a very small buffer, which keeps everybody in the same line. They still see exactly the same amount. They just cannot physically touch riders by hanging over the barriers or waving their arms about.
Do you remember the cardboard hands?
Yes, because it nearly...
The cardboard cut.
Yeah, I won't say it nearly chopped his arm off, but it lacerated Thor Hushov's upper right arm, and he was bleeding like a stuck pig.
Thor Hushov was bleeding profusely.
Have you not heard that expression?
I have, yes. Do you remember and they're still around in certain races, air sausages. What on earth were they about? Can't you just clap with your hands? Why do you have to bang two inflatables together? And they were
otherwise they have to paint advertising on people's hands, I suppose.
And they were lethal. They used to occasionally lose one of those, and they caused all kinds of havoc as well for riders. So yeah, if they can moderate the publicity, they can also, of course, as you say, have a 10-minute before the riders arrive rule, last checks on the barriers, just to make sure they haven't been pushed out of place, because anything can happen. Gosh. Well, we've been chastising today. 2 minutes and 4 is the gap to Thomas Gachinot. We've seen virtually nothing of him, because I think the hopes of him making it home today are practically zero. We have had a breakaway make it in the past. Came so close with Jack Bauer, of course, to Alexander Kristoff denied him, but Niels Pollitt on a hillier route than we have had on our approach today to Nîmes. That was in 2021, where he won solo from a breakaway. We've got a solo rider up the road, but I haven't really got high hopes. Likewise, hopes diminishing for the wind. We were expecting it around 98, then we were expecting it around 80, 86, and then we're expecting it possibly now. But from the look of the trees and the look of the way they're riding, there is none. It's a shame. It would have defined the day. So, what is going to define the day? It's going to be the fast man, Danny.
Yeah, it is. Jasper Philipsen, you're seeing here, just at the back of the peloton, just chilling, getting a bit of assistance, cooling from the staff of his team. The ice in the tights down the back of the neck, whilst his teammate is on the front just controlling things, but no stress for Alpecin and Jaco Alula, who are the two teams just marshalling the front, just making sure that gap doesn't go out too much, but yeah, no stress whatsoever. You can see the yellow jersey there, Jonas in the King of the Mountains polka dot jersey on the left-hand side of the screen as well.
Great deal of respect between the pair of them. We had a lovely feature earlier on today where we were just pondering the atmosphere between the pair of them. I think, Robbie, they're both grateful that the other one exists.
We're grateful the other one exists,
We
because
certainly are.
it would be a very one-sided battle without one or the other.
I think they spur each other on, though, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do, and it's what you need for someone to be great. You need someone else great for them to beat. Otherwise, it just seems inevitable and obvious.
Absolutely right. Well, another rather fetching viaduct, and we wait for everyone to reveal themselves through this little ammo. Just going to welcome back our wider cycling fraternity. Well, it's turned into a very still afternoon here on the Tour de France. 188.6 kilometres. Quite a rude distance, really, coming out of a rest day, but they've kind of taken it at their ease, at least at the beginning. The nerves that we have had so far today have been generated, well, firstly, of course, by the intermediate sprint, but possibly even in advance of that, by the very threat of wind. Seems the threat is enough. What's going on here? You could have hurried up there, madam, I think was the was the expression. You never know what's going to happen, I'm afraid. This is an open sport and it demands respect from the spectators, and we've spoken about this earlier today.
Even from those who don't seem to realise it's going on.
Exactly, I think that's what that exclamation was indeed about, or at least that sign as to, are you serious? Couldn't you have made that across there a little bit quicker? But yes, generally speaking, save for the man with the chips, or crisps, whatever you want to call them, the riders seem to have been well respected, although there has been, it has been noted that there's been a bit of booing, which you doggedly, determinedly, unfortunately, seems to be very much part of the sport. Whenever anyone excels, they try to get knocked down. It's that heads over the parapet thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the tall poppy syndrome. I don't know, maybe a few wandering and lost football fans gotten used to booing the opposition, but it's not the done thing in cycling.
Well, one would hope that one day will be the case, but sadly it is kind of with us. We've had all kinds of abuse of cyclists through the years, some more significant than others. Eddie Merckx himself receiving a blow to the liver back in the day, and Chris Froome having all kinds of unmentionables hurled at him, as well as the abuse. So, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, save for a bag of crisps, I think we've done all right this year, and let's hope it stays pretty much like that. It's a gift having the Tour come by. Any Grand Tour and cycling generally is not ticketed. It's here for the fans to get as respectfully close as they possibly can to their heroes. There's no sport like it, Robbie.
No, there's not, and that's what's so great about it. It is what makes it sometimes dangerous. Can be oftentimes frustrating, particularly for those riding at the front in the mountains when the crowd is at fever pitch and running alongside and inadvertently throwing flip-flops underneath the front wheel. We saw that the other day on Plateau de Bay, the slow motion replay of a flip-flop going underneath Tadej Pogacar's front wheel when he was following Jonas Vingegaard. Luckily that didn't affect him nor the outcome of the race.
No, it's a privilege, isn't it? And I was listening to Geraint and Luke on their podcast last night, and they were talking about the worst thing that's ever been thrown at them, and Geraint said a firework. So I mean, crisps compared to a firework, yeah, I think you'd take that, but it's just, yeah, not needed and totally unnecessary, isn't it?
Yes, the flip-flop, of course, invented by Philippe Philop. Or I may have made that up. We hail him.
That's one of your better jokes, Carlton.
Oh,
that's a worry.
I liked it anyway.
Thank you. A minute and 54 is the gap. You know, the average pace today has not been the slowest.
I thought you were going to tell us about the average size of a flip-flop.
No, we'll have to ask Philippe about that.
Not quite field art, this one, is it?
No, it's not quite an homage either, but
good viewing point though.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Square bales, they kind of disappeared for a while.
Extra large.
And yeah, the Tour de France actually has to commission the smaller bales, which they used to use at the side of the road. I haven't actually seen any, I must admit. But yeah, they had to be specially made, and Sean Kelly was fully au fait with how much they used to cost.
We looked it up, didn't we, Danny? If you only want to buy sort of a few, one to 5, they're about £7 for the low quality. The sort you put on the stable floor, and they help catch the mess, which then has to be all cleaned up. But when it's a bale of feed, then it goes up significantly at over £20 a bale.
Well, Sean used to grow straw, yeah, as feed. He knows everything between silage, haylage, and the rest of it. I didn't even know haylage existed, but it does. Anyway, what also exists are some fabulous sprinters. Here's Dylan Groenewegen.
Dylan already got the stage win in the bag, so the pressure off in one respect, but another opportunity today, the last opportunity. What can you tell us about today's final?
Yeah, a lot of runabouts. That's for 100% sure. So yeah, we know what to do, and yeah, pushing forward to have a good position.
And how have you recovered after the very difficult mountain stage we just had?
Yeah, that was a really hard one, but almost all the sprinters made it. Everybody suffered. It wasn't a really nice stage, but not for the sprinters, and yeah, we made it in the time cut, so that was good. Yeah, today everybody feel, I think, a little bit tired after the rest day, but yeah, last week, yeah, less chance, so we go for it.
Well, as we come into guard, it's time for a changing of that guard, and we welcome back to carry you home today, Rob Hatch.
Thank you very much, Carlton. So 50 kilometres to go on this stage of the Tour de France. Stage 16 today, starting in Grisson, heading to Nîmes, 188 kilometres in total. Bobby McEwen's still just about with us. He's laughing and smiling away in the background. What tickled you?
It just gives me the giggles every time, like from a chopper, which makes a lot of noise. They give us a shot of some cattle in a field, and then they play in the mooing sound effect. It just gets me every time.
Well, getting his time at the front is Thomas Gachignat. An interesting selection for this Tour de France. He had a really good podium at the French Nationals, third. But before this tour, he'd never ever ridden a stage race longer than 6 days in pro racing. That happened only once. He'd only ever done 4 days against World Tour opposition. He's new to this. He's survived 2 and a bit weeks in, and he's on his throne at the front, giving it a good go. A couple of solid top 10s in one-day racing. A couple of Trop-Bro-Léon, Doise d'Ovlin that are difficult races. But this is different. And he's enjoying himself at the front today.
Well, this is something we spoke about just a little bit earlier, Rob. The fact that this season he's had just 1 DNF. He's only not finished 3 races in the last 2 seasons. I went through the last 4 seasons. You can count his did not finishes on one hand.
It's all the more impressive then, given that he's stepping up to this new level here.
He's finished 19 out of 19 stage races that he's ridden.
Easier to finish when they're not 3 weeks long.
That is true, but you know, just getting through any of them without any major mishap, getting one end to the other is, and you know, not falling ill, not getting injured.
Part of the game, certainly nowadays. Extra eating, fueling, all that sort of stuff as well. Danny's left for the moment. He's going to join us in a minute. Sean's here as well. We're into the final 50 Ks.
That means I'm going to take a short break and I'll rejoin for the finale.
Thanks, Robbie. See you in a moment. 1 minute 36. What can we describe this as, Sean? An adventure?
Well, this is a bit of a, I think, a lot of effort for no gain. You know, when you see the position of the race and the way the sprinters are controlling, you'd be better off to wait for another day. And talking about Thomas Gachignat, you know, about race finishing and that, and as Robbie said, not abandoning races. Yeah, maybe he doesn't take much risk. Maybe he doesn't push himself too much. He doesn't get sick. There's all of that to be considered, but still it is nice to be able to do that. But yeah, a surprise selection, as you said, Rob, coming into this one, not having you know, a lot of stage races in your legs. But yeah, he's surviving well. When you're being out there today, able to get out there, even to think about getting out there today, you have to feel okay.
Peloton still rolling along. They're not quite expected, but feared wind hasn't really materialised yet. 47.6 k's to go on the way to Nîmes. Larry rejoins us. Larry's been watching on. Anything to report your end, Larry?
No, not a whole lot, but I guess just referring to Gashinar out there in front is, you know, if you're on a team like Total and you don't have a big sprinter, you know, just getting out there in front, it can be still a big bonus for the team. You know, it's a lot of TV time, and I actually I was scrolling through Twitter when I was off the air there, and I came across Inner Ring posted something that actually apparently Cofidis got more impressions or more sort of return on their investment for a day out front of Anthony.
Good workup. Good. Probably should have left a little in the tank for later, but we really kind of pushed the wattage. So fuck it. Definitely got a stretch though. My left is super tight. Yeah, so that was our highest 20-minute power. Whew, that was good. That was a good challenge.